Right now we're in our central Montana elk camp, just outside of White Sulphur Springs, Montana. Coming into this week, there's certainly pressure, but that exists with any week. You know, anyone that hasn't even tried this before, and maybe those that have, I would simply say, you know, for me, it's just expect the unexpected. We don't know what we're going to get into. We just know that we're going to get into some sort of adventure. We're going to have a good time doing it. You're in camp, you got good food, good place to stay, camaraderie, you know, we're cutting up, we're having a good time. You know, that's kind of the norm. And I think that in the end, that's what people are really looking for.
What brought me to Montana this week was a long-awaited trip with Charge Adventures to chase elk. Been looking forward to it for a long time. I hunt because it presents a challenge and an experience that really I haven't found anywhere else in my life. For 30 years, I did a lot of things, a lot of activities, but none of those things gave me the experience and the feelings that I felt hunting a live animal. Especially after that first experience where you're able to take something and feed the family. That is a big part of it for me, and you really can't get that experience anywhere else. For me, it's the challenge above all else. It's never knowing quite what's going to happen, the unpredictability of it.
To see first morning, you know, we have an encounter, then we have not just an opportunity, but arrows are in the air, bulls are bugling. Very, very encouraging.
So we got into position on the backside of this hill, kind of the top and the backside, and Mike was calling. Lo and behold, a few started kind of working our direction. All of a sudden we heard bugles getting a lot closer. I was able to get a range on him as he kind of trotted down to this tree line, let one fly. What you never want to happen happened at that point. I was able to watch the arrow. It was actually a clean miss. Spooked him off, obviously, took the cows, ran up the hill about 100 yards, turned around and looked back at us. Was able to get a good look at him at that point and kind of see that it was a clean miss and confirm that, and started feeling that flood of emotion that is pretty devastating.
Man, I'm broadside at 50. I raised him like 48 right here, and then he took a few more steps. So
You start questioning what happened. Was it me? How could I do that? I felt so dialed in, I felt so comfortable. It was a rush situation and he came in so fast, but still you feel calm, you feel collected, like you have a good yardage and pin.
Oh, yeah, man, if you had something that was vital, he'd have never stopped like that and just kind of stood around.
There's a million things going through my head that I really couldn't explain what happened with a miss, but I think most hunters have been there, if not all hunters have been there. If you've hunted long enough, you have. It's pretty devastating when it happens for me, and I felt every bit of emotion that morning. And yeah, I sat and sulked for a little bit and ate a sandwich and move on to the next encounter, because there's always a next one if you keep trying and keep moving along.
So what brought me up to Montana was just the opportunity to chase elk and then work with Charge Adventures to just kind of document the whole thing while we're doing this. What I love about elk hunting is just the adventure aspect of it. Put your boots on, go miles. I think we've probably done about 5 today, carrying your bow, chasing these crazy animals that are screaming in your face. It's just the height of hunting a tuned-in animal. We were just walking up the trail and then we just heard one go crashing off into the woods, and then another bull actually stood up and was looking for us. I think he heard us, so he was just kind of staring at us through the timber.
busted on multiple levels. Sight, sound, and smell.
I come from Texas where it's pretty darn flat and it's hot all the time. So this is a beautiful country. Waking up and it being in the high 30s, low 40s in the morning, crisp and refreshing, and then seeing a decent number of animals. This hunt has been a whole lot of fun and just been something really different than a lot of what I've done in previous hunts. Generally, hunting hasn't been a way of life for my family, but I have a lot of family members who hunt in one way or another. It's also important to me to introduce other friends who are passionate about challenging hobbies. People who kind of like doing things the hard way. I think a lot of those people gain an appreciation for why we hunt. And then you see these crazy cool animals that are so turned on They can smell you from a long way away, they can see you, they can hear you, and you got to slip in on them and get as close as you can. And then ultimately the goal is to harvest one of these majestic animals. But it's just the adventure and the chase that makes it exciting. To hear cows calling, keying in on what they're doing, where they are, and telling them the story that they want to hear so that they can come in and hopefully you can get a shot. We've seen some bulls and a group of spikes, just a few animals here and there at pretty significant distances, but nothing within bow range or real close at all. We've actually been in kind of a weird spot. There's a bunch of wildfires out west and it's been blowing in a bunch of smoke. And so we've had this weird haze that we're trying to glass through. This morning we heard them down and we tried to get in this gully where they might be passing through. And then I saw movement way back through the trees and I was able to actually see a bedded elk pick his head up. And he was probably about 200 yards or so from me, and being able to just catch that movement was exciting. Because at that moment, I kind of knew it's on. Like, this is real, we're in it. I only saw one bull at first, then another one joined him, and they started coming towards us, and then they circled kind of around the timber to get behind us and get our wind. And so at that point, it was kind of a game of try to fire off a shot before they get behind us and get our wind. So an elk came around, nice looking bull, guessed the range at about 40 yards and sent one flying. And I didn't hear an impact.
I just took a shot at 40 yards. Felt like I was right on him.
And then we went back looking for the arrow and then found out it was actually about 27 yards, so I sent it right over his back. If you're shooting the wrong range, you're not gonna hit him.
So you hear the stories all the time about last day of the hunt and the successes people have had. Tonight was the last night of our week-long elk hunt here in Montana. Dominic had us go down this face and stop on this hillside. We got to the spot we wanted based on where we'd seen elk previously. You know, sometimes it just feels real elky in certain areas, so he starts cow calling a little bit. First we don't hear much, he does maybe one more call and then we hear footsteps. So we get a little bit on edge. They seem like they're a long way off, but before we start working our way even further, we see antler tips. But at this point we can't move towards cover. We're pretty exposed here on this hillside, and we lose sight of him for a minute and then he comes back into sight. We see those antler tips again moving closer and we see, okay, he's gonna pop out right over here to the right, and most likely we might have a shot. So we're only worried about being exposed at that point. He stops calling, just lets the bull kind of work and look and search slowly. He stepped out 45 yards downhill, split my 40 and 50 pins, put them where I thought they needed to go, took my time, leveled it, and then Dom gave one little cow call to stop him. Sure enough, head darts uphill, looks at us. I mean, we're pegged there on the hill. We knew we were exposed. Release felt amazing. Arrow left to right was perfect. He jumped that string like I've only seen white-tailed deer do. He ducked and turned at the same time, dropped several inches, enough to take my shot out of what I feel was going to be vitals. Checked the arrow. There was meat on the arrow, but it was in no man's land there up high, and I was just absolutely gut-wrenchingly devastated at that point. I mean, it was the perfect setup, but I know from experience and from talking to many hunters more experienced than me that the pain will pass and it'll be a neat experience to remember and look back on. Would I change a thing? Not in what we did. I'd love for him to not be so nimble and agile, but other than that, amazing experience, amazing encounter, so much fun to have the bull come into a call, get a shot off, and experience that. Not a perfect end to the week, but an exciting and exhilarating end to the week of elk hunting with Charge Adventures for sure.
I mean, we couldn't ask for a better week, a better group of people, fantastic camp, had a lot of fun. We're gonna look forward to some more.